Hey family, so I want to share a testimony about how I led my dad to Jesus back in 2011. All of us who have lost loved ones, we know how painful that can be. And one thing I can say, it strengthened my faith. It really did. So I was born again in 2003, October 12th. And I learned from my pastor to thank God for whatever we're praying for. So I was praying for household salvation. So I began to say, thank you, Father, for household salvation. I prayed that prayer for 8 years. In 2011, I was at home. I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he would always say, bye, pumpkin, I love you. He would always say that before he hung up. Well, the last time I was talking to him, a tear fell down the side of my face, my cheek, and I stood and I was like, what is this? What is this? And I'd only been saved for 8 years. So a few weeks later, I got a phone call from his girlfriend. She said they took him to the hospital because he was talking weird things, like he didn't know where he was at. And at first she was like, well, they were going to send him home. And then she said they did more tests, and she was crying, and I could barely understand her. And she said that he had a brain tumor. And I literally felt like someone had just like sucker punched me, like I couldn't catch my breath, like this wasn't really happening. So the following Sunday, I was in my prayer closet. We just got home from church. I was in my prayer closet, and I remember looking up at the top of the closet, the left top of the closet, and I saw my dad's face and like a white sheet right there at his neck, like the gown or a sheet. It was white. And I knew in my spirit that God was telling me, this is it. Now is the time. Now is the time. And I got up. Picked up my pocketbook and my keys. I told my ex-husband at that time, I'm going to get my dad saved. And he said I knew it, like I knew it was going to happen, because honestly, I did. Inside, it was a done deal for me. So I walked into the hospital room. People were standing around. They were standing around the wall. The nurse was coming around. People leaning against the wall, crying. And I walked up to Daddy, and I said, Daddy, I need you to pray with me. He said, okay. I said, I need you to know what you're saying, okay? And he was like, okay. And so I just led him into prayer, and I told him to ask Jesus to come into his heart, to forgive him, and take him to be with him in his kingdom forever. And y'all, when he said that prayer, the brightest light came through the window, and I have never seen light like that in my life. And the peace that came over me was absolutely amazing. Even though it was painful to walk through the situation, yes, my heart was breaking, but man, I knew my dad was going to be okay. If he didn't go home, to Mebane, if he didn't get out of the hospital, he was going to be okay. And everybody in the room was looking over there at me like they knew something supernatural had happened. They just kept staring over there, because I'm the only believer in my family, as far as I know. But like I said, this was back in 2011. So anyway, when they moved him to a hospice, the nurse had told him that they're going to move him to hospice, and he had brain cancer, so he thought he was going to see his mom and dad at hospice. They've been gone for I don't know how long now, many years, and he was so excited. And the nurse came and got me, and she said he thinks he's going to see his mom and dad, because my dad was 64 when he passed. And so I had to be the one to tell him, no, Daddy, Papa and Nanny's gone. They've been gone. And I have never seen my dad cry. I've never seen him cry. And he cried. Oh my gosh, he cried, and he wiped his tears with his gown. And you talk about pain. I was pushing my feet to the floor, trying to just push my body into the wall of the room, because that was so difficult. So anyway, they moved him to hospice, and I drove there and followed him and everything, helped him get settled in or whatever. Y'all, he was hearing church music. He was seeing angels. He told us he was hearing church music. And when he passed away, he went so peacefully. He took his last breath. And before he even got sick, he walked me down the aisle at the church. But I used to invite him, Daddy, why don't you go to church with me? Why don't you go to church with me? And he'd always say, honey, if I go to church, it's going to catch on fire, or whatever that joke is, or whatever. But yeah, right there at the last minute, he was 64 years old. He just went to sleep, closed his eyes, and it was the most peaceful experience. And so after the funeral and all that, a couple of weeks, I had to get my kids up for school. They were little at that time. And I'll never forget this. I was drained. I was so drained. When you go through situations like this, it takes every bit of strength inside of you. And I'll never forget, I looked up to the ceiling and I said, God, if you don't get me through this, I am not going to make it. And guys, when I tell you, he helped me put one foot in front of the other. And my strength was so, my faith was strengthened. Most people, when they go through situations like that, they'll blame God. God, why this, why that? No, I didn't blame him. I was just in awe of how he carried me through that, how he used me. He used me to lead my dad to Jesus. So I can take that with me when I die. He used me to lead my dad to Jesus. And that means more to me than anything. And yeah, so I know that when Jesus comes to take us home, my dad is probably going to be the first one waiting. And but I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's hard when we lose loved ones, but God is so good. He is such a loving, merciful Father, and he is the only one that can get us through that kind of pain. So I hope you find encouragement in this. Lord willing, I will see you in the next video, guys. Have a great evening.